We got some weekend previews. So nice 10 cards, slowing down a little bit, getting a little bit more all over the place, but that's okay. We've probably still got a little while before release. So yeah, let's just get to it. The first card is Blue Flame Palm Strike. This one is really cool. A lot of people have noted the interactions with face-up momentum. If you have something that goes to momentum face-up, this will go ahead and add it face-up if you can find something in your top 3 cards. Your hit rate on that's going to be... If your whole attack lineup is face-up, besides this guy, right, if it's all face-up momentum stuff, you might have a nice... 70% hit rate on that or something like that, which is pretty cool. But overall, on its face, the package is nice. It's a powerful 3, and that's cool, and it generates one of its own momentum, and that's cool. So you could think of it as a 5 mid 6 that has powerful 3 if you want. Kind of long-lasting explosion stats, which is a card we see here and there. Long-lasting has probably a little bit more in terms of fringe benefits. I think the keywords on this are maybe a problem, just being a punch. You could have some death punch decks, and maybe down the road there will be punch decks on other symbols, but right now, Chaos is usually either ranged or charged, Fire is usually either ranged or Fury. Death, you might see punches for Relentless Barrage. But I think that's going to hold it back, especially when all 3 of these symbols have powerful 3 moves that they're happy to play already. Right? Death and Fire have Cyclone, Chaos and Fire have Ice Storm. So it's hard to see where this fits. Yeah, I think at some point this could see more play, but coming out of the gate, it's going to be a cool card that mostly just sits in the box, I think. I'm going to give it a 2. Ectoplasm Clones. Well, this is certainly going to get play. You look at a card that says you can play 8 copies of it in your deck. People are going to put 8 copies of it in their decks, right? They're going to try it. They're going to explore it. It's hard to rate a card like this. We have, 50 card decks. I don't think we've ever had a card like this as an attack. We've had a foundation like this back in the old UVS days. But, how often are you going to see your 8x attack in a swarm of copies? Certainly going to make more people play Ectoplasm, right? Because they get to play Ectoplasm Clones with a bonus. The first copy of this is a 3 high 4. The second is a 4 high 5. You really need to play 3 copies before you feel like you're winning. So, I think it'll be a backbone of ally decks if you want to do the ally theme. I assume Coda is going to be playing this. But that's mainly lack of options more so than anything else, I would think. In time, or if there's enough allies coming out, this will probably get pushed out of a lot of those decks, but I think for the time being, you're going to see people trying to run the Chaos Ally package because Coda's attack is really cool and his foundation is nice. And if there's like 1 or 2 more cool Chaos Ally foundations you can fetch and 1 or 2 more cool ally attacks you can put into the mix, I think, there could be a package there, and this is a nice, bread and butter for diff to have in a deck like that. So I'm going to give it a 3. Quickdraw. Got some snipe players really excited to see this. It is, it's a somewhat complicated version of Reciproextend, where if you can guarantee a burn, then it's a 4/4 that draws you a card that gives quote-unquote pseudo-speed, so long as they can't draw the card off the top of their deck and you're not actually snipe using that to guarantee the burn too. If you are snipe, you're happy to guarantee the burn too, of course. For other characters, it's like, pseudo speed to the next time they try to block something. That said, Reciproextend's a really good card and gets played a lot. So, yeah, on Death is the symbol that's most likely to have these guaranteed burns, and it has a bunch of these 4 speed, 4 damage moves that draw a card if they hit, right? You have Touch of Decay, you have Binding Kick. So Quickdraw is sort of a different flavor into that mix. Ranged and weapon. It's not a Fury. It doesn't have combo. And I don't know how much we're going to see it on Air or Chaos unless you're exactly snipe, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Togas might run this, right? if you're Toga, that this becomes a guaranteed card draw, because even if they block it, you're gonna get to draw the card. But Toga, and she'd probably rather have this than a Binding Kick or a Touch of Decay, right? Unless she's on the pile a bunch of damage on my Touch of Decay spam plan. I think it'll be around a little bit. It's not gonna do huge crazy things, but the one mid block is nice as well. I'll give this a 3 for now. I think it's gonna get pushed out over time, kind of like Clones is, but at least with the card pool we have right now, I could see a few decks that people like playing this card. And Twisting Azure Inferno, this is the big splashy one. A lot of people, the obvious Tokoyami angle here. One thing I will say about this card, it is a 4 mid 4, right, which is not the most exciting stat line, and if you are not playing an action, if you're playing an action card, it's a 4 mid 6 and you're a lot happier. But if you do not play an action card during this, it is a 4 mid 4 Crow and Frog, basically, that gives your text +1 speed for the turn, which is cool. But, you know, Crow and Frog, if you're not exactly Tokoyami, or to some extent Asui, is very, very fringe, like last card into a list kind of vibes, so to think a little bit before playing this card. I really do think you want to have at least a decent chance of playing an action during this attack to be playing it. But it does have charge and range, which is a desirable keyword combination. There are plenty of decks that are going to be able to put this to 7 damage. Obviously, Dabi himself. Decks like that are usually going to want speed. It is certainly a difference having a 4 diff instead of something that is upfront a 5 diff, if you're not going to get to ready that foundation. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously better than Crow and Frog, right? I'm not saying that it's not. I don't think it's insane. I think it's could be a 2 or 3x in a lot of these decks. It'll be a 4x if you're Endeavor or Dabi or something, and you're definitely 100% getting the 3 damage. But even then, you know, you might have other competition in your 4 diff slot that you want to do something other than have this sort of mid attack that greases the wheels. You might not have the card draw to support it, for instance. But certainly it'll be in a lot of Tokoyamis, and that deck's going to be very, very, very popular out of the gate, I'm sure. So it's going to have a high impact. It's going to be kind of frustrating when people go like Inferno into Inferno and all your blocks have -2 to their check, right? And there's still some Dark Shadow in the card pool and things like that. It's going to be pretty high impact. I don't think it'll be absolutely everywhere, but it's going to be in a few decks that are making pretty good use of it. So we'll give it a 4. Volca Discord, this is a card I like a lot. If you think a little bit about the math on this, it's in the mid game, it's very often going to be 4 or 5 speed low for 5, which is fine. It has some desirable keywords. It has a low block that I know Chaos decks have certainly been looking for. It is above average damage. The top enhance is weird, but it helps your Frigids or something. It's just kind of there to be present mic themed, right? But yeah, just a nice, you know, workhorse 4 diff attack that, you know, in the late game situations is gonna be able to get up to, you know, 7, 8 speed starting out, put some damage on that. And, you know, scaling offense. We like seeing scaling offense. It's something that's really been missing a lot from the game that this set seems to be adding a lot of. And yeah, I think this is gonna find a lot of homes. I don't know if it's gonna be like a 4x all over the place, and again, you know, competition. This is competing with cards like Ice Storm for deck space, right? But I think it's going to put in a lot of good work. I'm going to go ahead. I kind of want to give this a 4. I'm going to give this a 4. I think this card's going to actually be really, really valuable. And we have Zipline Dart. This is close to being May only. Slam, tech, or weapon attack. That's a decent enough mix that... Well, the thing is, Zipline itself is not a weapon, so if you're on the weapon theme, for the weapon theme, it's a little hard to play Zipline Dart. It's not a weapon itself. Just gives your next weapon 2 speed. It's a 4 mid 5. It's a 6 mid 5 if you have assets, but just like thinking about the mix of the things that this card wants to be doing, I think until we see a nice enough tech package, and maybe there will be one after this set, that people are just like, yeah, I want to run a tech traded theme deck. It's really hard to see this outside of May. May's reasonably happy with it. 6 mid 5, that's going to give your next move +2 speed, presumably, is fine. Again, it's like long-lasting explosion energy. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but if you're a May deck, especially, if you're on a symbol where you're not super thrilled with your other 5-dip options, you could probably play a few of these and feel pretty good about it. Yeah, kind of character only right now, I think, so I'm going to give it a 2. Confident Inventor. This card's in a weird place because all of these symbols have +1 damage spam options that are kind of more attractive than this, and I was just talking about the tech lineup. And even so May doesn't need a +1 damage spam on a 2-diff, really. So she'd be in it for this second ability, which is, first of all, you need to be running other assets, which you might be. Right? You could certainly be running other assets. It makes May's damage boost a little bit bigger. You might be able to get online a little bit faster, basically. But that is a steep cost, and those assets, you probably want them to be nice blocks. And yeah, the main upside to this is if you get learning the standards and an asset gets flipped, one of your box full babies gets flipped, you can use this to get it back into your RFG. I think Hobby Harden kind of does that job better than this does, but if decks are really tight on their attack selection, they don't want to run a card like that, you could see, a couple copies of this floating around some May decks, but again, kind of character only, and I think it's actually pretty niche in May herself. But if you're May, probably include a couple in your sideboard or something. Conflict of Ideologies, cool art card. These abilities are a little hard to gauge. So this is almost, right, a commit for commit to an extent. If you deal damage, you get to commit this and lock down a rival card, which, if there was a 2/5 that said commit something of your opponent's, that card would be very, 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 very good. This has that condition. You need to deal damage. It's a little bit of an in advance thing. It doesn't help you right now. It can't, close a game out, so to say. You have to be doing this back and forth stuff. And whatever it is you want to freeze has to already be committed. Your rival gets a full turn to understand that card's going to be committed. So it's certainly a lot worse than that, but in terms of the basic trade-off, it's around the same. So it's hard to guess at whether people are going to play it for that or not. The flip burn 2 is nice to have, on top of a card like this. That's the ability that helps you if you are planning to win this turn, right? Whereas the top ability is more if you're, doing the poke game or something. I think overall for a 2/5 +3 mid, it's going to be a little tough for this to find space. But it is specifically Fury attacks too, which is fine for 2 of these symbols, I guess. But that is notable. I do think if you're not on the Fury theme, you're probably going to have a hard time playing this. Maybe if you're a throw deck. But yeah, it's probably at the end of the day, I think it'll show up as like a 2x in a couple of decks, but that's probably about it. There's a lot of 3 sets. We're gonna have ample choices for our 2 difficulty foundations. There's a lot of stuff that's really cool that just doesn't get played on these symbols. So we'll give it a 2 though. I think there will be some decks that there's some particular foundation that they want to keep held down or whatever that might play this. Hype Man. So the main thing on this card is the momentum protection. If you are a deck on one of these symbols that really doesn't want to see its momentum stripped away, you could certainly have some of these in your sideboard unless momentum hate becomes, an all over the place in main decks again. So it'll serve that purpose. Cards like that have historically gone into sideboards from time to time, or decks like, Fire Tokuyami usually wants to be able to keep his momentum for Ice Walls, at least right now, if he's still running Ice Walls down the road. Then he might sideboard some copies of this for, you know, Instant Shining Flash or the like. We've seen some Momentum hate cards in this set. You're certainly not playing this card for the top enhance, although, you know, it adds to that sideboard value, right? If you're facing a Giro or something, you could use this to mess them up. Kind of strictly a sideboard card unless you really badly predict that there's going to be lots of momentum hate and you absolutely don't want to see it ever. Or, you know, maybe you have some weird wacky use for the self-mill, but sideboard card. Probably going to see like a decent number of sideboards, I would think, on these symbols. We'll see. I think it's gonna be kind of relevant. I'm gonna give it a 3. Now, last card is Showing Off. So that is a difficult bar to hit, doubling your attack's speed or damage. You don't have to do both, just one of them. If you do hit that bar, E-commit, take an attack out of aggressive is extremely good. For sure, that is, you know, a character ability on Coda, right? You need to be drawing the cards to make up for it. May obviously will. The life symbol certainly has plenty of draw. We'll see where All and Evil are at in terms of card draw after this set. They do get the Coping with number 1 out of the Endeavor starter, for instance. They get Ignited Arrow, which is probably going to get Showing Off a lot, actually, thinking about it, right? So show off Ignited Arrows, probably a combo there. Your opponent does get to try to do something about this, you know, if they have Speed Hate. Lots of decks will have Speed Hate that they can use to try to undermine this. Damage reduction a little less likely, but also, you know, that's a tougher bar to hit. You're going to have to add 3 or 4 damage to a move, usually 4 or 5, to be able to use this. But yeah, I think there will be plenty of decks running. I guess the other thing is, depending on your list, it's going to be a little hard to use a bunch of copies of this in one turn. So, you know, maybe not a 4X type of card, especially with the 4-check, but I definitely see this card seeing some play and doing some pretty good work. So we will give it a 3. Yeah, that'll wrap it up for our weekend previews. Pretty interesting set of cards, mostly pretty niche, kind of sideboard, kind of character-only stuff. You know, a couple cool attacks for Chaos and Fire, especially. And, you know, a couple neat foundations. It was fun. I just thought of that Ignited Arrow thing going live. I'm sure there's other cool things for Showing Off. And, so yeah, keep on going. We'll probably get, you know, I assume we might just get 3 cards a day going forward, unless they have another group of cards that sort of makes sense as a 4, as a sort of a collection of 4 cards for some character or another. So yeah, maybe we get to do these, you know, every 3 or 4 days, keep going on, a couple a week. Yeah, I'm rambling. Talk to you next time.